what other tips would you give for socialization? Because I'd love to throw that word out and create a whole new word so that we could redefine it. But I really love the idea of, take them with you and have them enjoy life with you. I think that is just such a beautiful way of looking at it. Are there any other tips that you would give along those lines, especially about when is too much and when is not enough?
I really like, and I've not really said it before, like I really like the idea of do life. And I actually think doing life is important without overfacing them. Welcome to the absoluteDOGS Sexier and the Squirrel podcast. I'm Lauren Langman. I'm one of the world's leading dog trainers, and it's my mission to help owners become their dog's top priority. In each episode, you'll discover how to gain trust and communicate with your dog like never before, creating unbreakable bonds that make you the most exciting part of their world. Welcome to the Sexier and the Squirrel podcast, the podcast that gives you real life dog training and sometimes human results too. Today, I'm joined by the wonderful Bill and the super Jen. And today we're talking puppies. I'm super excited because Bill, you're coming in as a typical pet dog owner, and Jen, you're coming in as our pro dog trainer expert. Welcome, both of you. Bill, you're going to start. You're going to kick us off, and we're going to go from pet dog owner to pro dog trainer, and we're going to see how this flows.
So this is a question for both of you, really. When we have puppies, people, some people call them children, it seems like it takes forever for human children to kind of get up and running. And it seems like puppies are they're born with this innate like knowledge, right? I mean, they're walking in a minute. Like it takes us a year, okay? But it seems like there's so much built in like knowledge, and there's so much built-in instinct there. Tell me what some of the things are that amaze you the most that dogs just intuitively know when they're born. Like what are some of the things that just blow your mind? Like, oh my God, they just know how to do this.
So I think first off, Bill, amazing. Yeah, they do get up there so much quicker than humans. And watching pups, I mean, I would say there are some things that really amaze me, probably the ability to read each other and the ability to learn from each other. I love watching them interact with mum and interact with each other and interact with the whole litter, really. But actually, they don't come out walking. So they're not like guinea pigs. They're not like baby guinea pigs and baby bunnies who really are fully functioning. Pups probably for the first 3 to 4 weeks, they really don't do huge amounts of movement. So you're looking at really the 4 to 8 weeks where they really start to move. Their function is amazing. They know pretty much how to sniff anything out and work out when anything is. And they have great startle reflexes as well. I love watching them startle. I love watching them like, oh, I heard something. But yeah, I just thought it would be a good thing to know. And I'd love you to see that one day when they're really tiny, when they're like a week old, 2 weeks old. They're really not a lot. Their eyes open 10 to 12 days, typically. They start to sort of walk around, I don't know, 14, 15, 16 days, but they're tottering and sort of on their bellies, really. And then gradually they start to stand up and move around. And they're just, it is still a process, but you've got to remember, I mean, Blink is 11, and I keep saying to people, when people say, oh, Blink, she looks so young, and I'm like, she's 11, but she's actually 77 in human years. So when you actually start to work that back, they've got to be quicker because their lives are so much shorter. And that makes me incredibly grateful to have them for the time that we have them, because for Blink, I will be her whole life, I hope. And equally, they've got to work quick because they've not got as long here, realistically. Jen, what about you?
One of the things I love about young puppies is that they show their personality and their potential early on. You can see which ones are the nervous ones or less brave, and the ones that are more brave, and the ones that are curious, and the ones that kind of hang back and observe. I really like how they quickly show who they are, or the potential of who they are. But then what's really neat about that too is that the ones that are lacking the confidence or are lacking the curiosity, we have skills, we have tools to be able to help them grow into a more confident teenage dog and adult dog. And that's one of the things I love, is seeing that early personality, those early traits, and then just nourishing them in the right direction.
I so agree, Jen. And one of my favorite things to do is actually say that suits, or that suits, or that suits, or that suits, or something I enjoy in a young dog. So for example, my last youngster, Skittle, she just as a youngster just had she oozed some presence, and I can't explain it. It's just something like very, very cool energy. And I think I've always been fairly energetically aligned with the energies I like. I like her energy. I really like her. Some days it's a lot, but I really like her energy. Go on, Jen. What's your question?
Well, first I think about that and I think Skittles and I think you, that's a perfect match. I mean, it's just the perfect match energy wise. I totally get that. And I think me personally, my youngest dog, Otter, he is intense. He is very like, let's go, let's go, let's go. I couldn't have handled that like 2 years ago or before I was a PDT. No way, no way. But now, because I have the skills, definitely. I love that intensity now. So my question for you is, why do you think people are so obsessed with puppies? What is it about puppies that we just want to ooh and ah over them?
I mean, God, they are so cute. I was walking over to our car park actually today. We've got a new kitten. My mum has a new kitten, and she's come into our family after losing my dad. And I felt like we needed some good energy around, and mum's not always home. So a kitten seemed more appropriate, and we're always around, and someone's always around at home. We've always got someone here. And I was just kissing her, and I'm walking along and I'm kissing her and I'm kissing her and I'm nuzzling her and I'm sniffing her head. And I'm like, what am I actually doing? I'm a grown woman and I'm walking across the car park, snuggling, sniffing and kissing a kitten while singing her baby songs at 7 a.m. in the morning. And you know what? Like, I'll be really completely open here. As a mother, I found it really hard to be like that with Eliza. I found it really hard. And yet with kittens and puppies, it feels so easy to just adore them and to love them. And yet sometimes, like with Eliza, I found those bits challenging. And I don't know, it's not that I didn't ever love, it's more that like just to be completely openly affectionate was sometimes like, I don't know, it's harder. I can't explain it. It's harder for me. Whereas I definitely always found it very easy to be snuggling and kissing and like sniffing. And I can't explain it. For me, they're cute. They're unpredictable. They are funny. They're really funny. I watched my cat the other day bashing my vet's like stethoscope, bashing it from side to side. They're so playful. And you know what? I look back on, probably going into too much detail here, but I look back on like Eliza when she was young, and I wish I'd enjoyed that more with her. But sometimes with a baby animal, you get the opportunity to do it again, if that makes sense. So I think the innocence, I think the sheer innocence, how naive they can be. Like they don't know, like you've got to protect them because they will fall off something, or they will go over something, or they'll do something really silly that you think, or they would swim until they couldn't swim, that type of thing, that they'll do things that that they're vulnerable. And so I suppose there's also that massive want to look after something and to have a purpose. Like for my mum, part of the reason for getting a kitten was to give her purpose in her day, so that actually when she gets up, there's something to laugh at. Sadie's helping her. Sadie's the kitten's name. Sadie's helping her do the dishes. Sadie's helping her eat dinner. Sadie's telling her to get up in the morning because she's mowling. Meow. Sadie's looking out of the window at the birds and throwing herself at the window. Like there's always things that you can be giggling at, right? So I think they're lighthearted, they're present, they are in the moment. I just think there's something very special about baby animals. And I think all baby animals, actually, the majority of baby animals, you just can't help but go, you know what it's like. You just, it's isn't it? It's
I'll just say for the record that for those who don't know, Eliza is adorable as hell. So like, she's wonderful.
She is.
She's wonderful.
She's truly wonderful. And she's really very similar with animals. And it's a funny thing, like with Eliza, it was like I had to learn to do that. With animals, it was always very natural for me to do that. And I can't explain that. I can't explain it. But Eliza, it was like a learning skill. Animals, very, very natural.
So at the beginning of life, I think I'm a big fan, especially with people, right? I think like you're a product of your environment, and you're very much, you know, like your formative years, starting at year one, you know, or year zero, super, super important. How important is that with puppies? Like how important is that early, you know, their experiences and their surroundings and their environment and the care and their nutrition and all, how important is that to forming them later on?
Huge. Absolutely huge. We're having this discussion, me and my friend only the other day, and I've got a really great friend, and he's got pups at the moment, and his his whole family are like wearing hazmat suits if they go near the puppies, and they're like in complete like headgear and like everything's on, gloves on, and like honestly, I was like, no, seriously. Like, and I was giggling, and we're giggling away together, and I was telling him he had OCDs. And the big thing for me is handling them a lot, speaking to them, having noises on, even if you don't think they can hear you. So Blink is deaf. My dog Blink is deaf, and I don't think she can hear much, but I still talk to her. So I still have all the same body language. I have all the same movements. I have all the same, like everything happens the same. So at the early stages when they can't hear you, puppies' ears are closed, they can't hear, and then suddenly they'll start to startle. I have TV on all the time. I have radios on all the time. I'm bashing things around. I'm picking things up. I'm handling them. I'm handling them when I'm cold. I'm handling them when I'm hot. I'm handling them when I've just come in out of the rain and my hands are wet. Like, I will be handling and doing a lot. And I think that for me, the other thing is, on the whole, I like them to get on with it. I don't like to be too over precious, and I think that's quite important as well. Like our kitten, she comes in the car with us, and so I was going out the other day and mum was not here, and I was like, okay, you're going in a crate. So I just popped her in a top crate, and I popped Skittle next to her, and I popped Wild next to her, and they were like, who is this new mate? And they were like, and she was like yowling because she's a Siamese. And so she's like, meow, meow. And they're like, what on earth is this new puppy? And the cool thing is, I think with animals, I really believe there's a level of rock and roll, like get them to see everything you're going to be doing. Don't overface them. So I think there's a fine line between overfacing them, but do enjoy the experiences, all the experiences. At the same time, that doesn't mean put them on a lead and take them into a supermarket and get them to meet everyone. It's more like let them do life with you. I like the idea they do life with you. So whatever you're doing, and it's funny, Bill, because I know that we're coming out to see you and we're bringing 2 dogs, and Matt said, oh, Bill asked like who's coming and what they, and I said, well, the thing is, they realistically, when we go away, we don't overexpose them because they've already had enough stress traveling. And I would say the same with pups, like don't overexpose them, but get on with normal life. And so for me, when we get somewhere, we're not going to rush out and take them for a walk. We're not going to like race out and get anywhere. We'll probably just settle them in their crates for a bit, leave the TV on, and we'll carry on doing whatever we're going to do. So they almost get a bit of like downtime because actually they've had a lot. And I would say the same with a pup. I'd take them everywhere with me. I might have a crate or a body pouch or like a harness or something that they're in, and they just do life with me. So same as Eliza, she's just done life with us. And everyone says about Eliza, who is my daughter, not my dog, they say she's so confident with people and she's so happy to talk to people and she's so like adult human conversation. And that's just because she's always done life like that. We've never given her any other, like, if you're coming with us, like she comes with us, she speaks to everybody like they're her friends. Like she doesn't see any age. I would hope she didn't see any age or difference in any way, that she just talked and had normal human conversation. And I think that's what we would like from our dogs too, that they just adjust and balance because of the fact that we do life with them. And I think that's important.
So I have a question about, because really what we're talking about is socialization, and it's gone from one extreme to the other, as we've seen through years of dog training. And, one extreme is the, put them in a bubble, like you said, the hazmat kind of stuff. And the other extreme is, I remember when my oldest dog was a puppy and just came to us, I was the 100 adventures in 100 days, because that was, at the time, that was the way that it was supposed to be done. Now, of course, he's very sensitive and I regret that. However, we are where we are and we can continue to build and grow. But what other tips would you give for socialization? Because I'd love to throw that word out and create a whole new word so that we could redefine it. But I really love the idea of, take them with you and have them enjoy life with you. I think that is just such a beautiful way of looking at it. Are there any other tips that you would give along those lines, especially about when is too much and when is not enough?
I think that's a brilliant question. And I think, Jen, it warrants almost a whole podcast. So let's put that in the diary and let's definitely do that too. I really like, and I've not really said it before, like I really like the idea of do life. And there's a cool song, it's Do Life Big. And I wouldn't say do life big with a puppy, it's just do life. And I actually think doing life is important without overfacing them. So today I was in the chiropractor. I had a dog that I'm training with me, and she came in, and then a noisy child came in, and the noisy child was playing and doing all the things that noisy 5-year-olds should do. So everything the 5-year-old was doing was appropriate. So I put her back out, because I didn't really need to interrupt the 5-year-old, but also it was too much for her. So I think that those things would be really important, to know that something is too much. And that doesn't mean you have to stop the parent and the child. Actually, it's just too much for your dog in that moment, so take the dog out. The other thing I would say is, little is like better than too much, like little like wins. And I would say it's way better for your dog to have no bad experiences or less bad experiences than hundreds and hundreds of good experiences, but a few really catastrophic bad experiences. And those bad experiences just like pay into that like lifetime experience, and you just don't need them. Another dog piling into your dog would be like a real prime example for me. That's something I just don't want my dog to experience, or my puppy to experience. And I would say the biggest one for me is try not to feel uncomfortable with other people's expectations of you with a puppy. So, for example, when Matt said we're going to California and we're going to meet up with Bill, and he said, but when we get there, we'll probably just let the dogs chill, right? And I was like, yeah, we'll let the dogs chill. We'll have dinner. Like, they'll be fine. Like, we'll have food, they'll be fine. Like, I don't want to go out for a big walk with them, because that's not normally what we would do. But at the same time, sometimes when you're in a new situation, you might think that's what you're supposed to do because you're around certain people. And when I say certain people, Bill's a great person to be around. He's a really understanding dog owner and a really understanding friend. You might be around people like typically would be my family. And my late dad would say things like, sure, they must just join in. They're part of the family, make them join in. But sometimes it's not right for them to join in. And sometimes actually joining in is really probably going to set them back, and possibly going to be, I remember reading something on one-time experiences, and sometimes a one-time experience can be so big for a dog or a person. And you'll know this as people, there will be a one-time experience that you will remember, and you will not have forgotten that experience. So you will not have forgotten it. You only needed to experience it once. It's enough to remember it for life. So yeah, remembering one-time experiences, being able to say no to family and friends where it's not appropriate, not taking yourself too seriously. I think that's important as well. Like being able to go, okay, maybe I messed up here, but I made a lot of good decisions as well. And doing life. So just doing life with a puppy without it being like, say I'm going to the cafe in the morning, and say I'm going to work in the afternoon, and say I'm going to see a friend in the evening. I'm not going to pick all three for the dog. I might pick one of those. And if I was looking at that, work, cafe, or friend, I'd probably pick work for my dog, because work for my dog is going to be quite appropriate. Whereas other people, it might be actually the friend in the evenings more appropriate. But it depends who the friend is, doesn't it? Like some friends are more appropriate than others for a puppy. And yeah, they're different appropriate. Like they might be great to go out for a drink with, but might be terrible for a puppy. Yeah, or they might be great to go to a play park with your daughter, but they're not necessarily so great for a puppy. Or they're great for a puppy, but they're not so great to go for a drink with. Like, you pick your battles.
I'll have a question in a sec. I do have to share one story. I was I've worked on a lot of movie sets, and I was on one where they had puppies, and they have, there's organizations and groups that are in charge of making sure that everything's safe and monitored well, and nobody's mistreating an animal or anything like that. But talk about going to the extreme. So we had puppies on set, and if you wanted to interact with the puppies at all, you had to wear like plastic gloves and masks and everything else. And I was just like, this is the least fun puppy experience I've ever had in my entire, like, petting a puppy with gloves on is just like, why? Like, so frustrating.
And you do understand that there might be a level of like risk, but at the same time, for me, it's a bit like children and dirt. There is a level of actually sometimes we just got to let them play, and actually there's a level of healthy in that.
Right.
And I think that's important too. There's so much research on like gut microbiomes, and I'm currently watching my goats, my chickens, all munching their mud and hay and straw and like digging up mess out there, and they just look so happy doing what they're doing. And I think there's just a really great space for a bit of balance, and I think sometimes that balance is not there, Bill, and I agree. Like, that's got to be the least fun puppy experience. If someone tells me to put gloves on and a suit on and start disinfecting up and down my arms and stuff, I'm like, no.
Not fun for the puppies either.
So I was gonna ask you about puppies and children, because I've had some really amazingly positive experiences where I've kind of been blown away. Again, this comes back to this intuition thing where I'm kind of like amazed that there's sort of some hardwiring inside of dogs in general that I'm usually amazed by, where they just kind of intuitively know some stuff. And I've seen some interactions with children and puppies and children and dogs where they seem to just know, like, oh, that's a younger person. This is a person that's a little off their balance, and they're learning and they're unsteady on their feet and whatever. And I got to be careful with them. But I'm sure that is a result. Well, I'm not sure. I'm asking you. I think that's a result of, like, again, socializing your dog and socializing your puppy and making sure they're around different things so they know the difference between this and that. But what are some things you can do because a lot of people, they have a puppy, but they also have a young child in the house. What are some things you could do to ensure that your puppy is comfortable around children, and that becomes a good relationship overall?
It's a great question. And I think, Bill, having multi-dogs, some dogs are way more emotionally intelligent than others. So, for example, I would say Brave is really emotionally intelligent. She's just a dear dog. Like, emotional intelligence is also handed down. And I saw it in her son Tokyo as well, just very emotionally intelligent dogs. And there are other dogs that are really as emotionally intelligent as a brick. Like, they really just don't have that level of emotional intelligence. They're just not there. And I've experienced both my own dogs and other people's. So I don't just believe it's also just training or socialization, or I do think some of it is the dog. So some of it is in the dog, and some dogs, like Brave, would make a fantastic therapy dog. Skittles would be a horrendous therapy dog. Like, just an awful therapy dog. Like, you would need therapy sometimes after working with Skittle. So like, Matt handed her to me the other day as he was coming down the stairs, and he handed her and he said, "Take her. She's made my nose bleed. She's hit me in the eye, and she scratched my neck." It's like some sort of abusive relationship being handed across. And it is a 6 kilo spaniel. And so you've got to giggle to a degree, because that type of dog is a lot of energy, and she doesn't necessarily have time for yours sometimes. She's so busy in herself. With children and dogs, I think it does come down to the responsibility of the adult always. And I think I haven't ever seen a bite case really that hasn't been able to be like, you can read them coming. People say he gave no warning. I'm like, he gave you 100 warnings. You just didn't listen to the warnings, or you didn't heed them. And when you have some of the warnings, like, I know a dog at the moment that I'm working with, the dog is growling over food. That dog, the lady is saying she doesn't want to rehome, but she has 3 children and she's not willing to put stair gates and community sort of spaces in. And for me, that dog's a walking liability, because that accident will happen. Someone will trip over the dog, or there'll be food on the floor and the child will go to grab it, or something will happen, because life happens around dogs. And so you'll step on something, or you'll make a noise, or another dog will make a noise and they'll pile in, or it's an accident waiting to happen. Like, for me, you foresee it. So I suppose 3 tips for having a family and dogs. One is have safe spaces for the dog and the people. So for me, my dogs aren't allowed on sofas unless invited. Although when we're coming to yours, both Venture and Wild think they're invited all the time. So you do have to remind them they're not always invited. Those are probably 2 of my wildest of the sofa dogs, but them and Blink. Honest, Blink is the same. Brave, very good. Classic, very good. But those guys, Spaniels, just seem to have their own level of importance. And then I would say, so safe spaces for both dogs and humans. So for me, if I'm, say, I might have a room that's like a human space, or I might have like an invited room, like this room that I'm in now. Actually, the dogs aren't allowed in this room, just walking in and out. We have stairs, and if they're invited upstairs, they can come up in here. But if they're not invited upstairs, they don't come in here. So I think that's important, Bill, safe spaces. The other one I would say would be important for me is gates. And I like stair gates, and I like beds. Like, I'm standing on a dog bed right now. So I'm standing on a dog bed. And those for me just mean sometimes that's your bed. Like, go and stand in your bed, and that's not for you. And if my dog's on the bed, no, Eliza, don't go up and grab them and cuddle them. They're on their bed. So that would be number 1. Number 2 would be try and involve the children in training. So get them involved in training. I think when they're old enough to train, and Liza was old enough, like, I've got her on videos, Pup to Perfection, the video was called. I think she's probably about 9 months, like 8-9 months. She's baby, and she's doing like choice games even at that age. She's doing like mouse game, and she's playing like flicking things, and like, she's trying really hard to do all the things back then. So you're talking a 9-month-old involved. Like, she was involved with dogs before she could walk. She couldn't even toddle, because we'd put her somewhere and be like, quick, film now while we've got her still. Because she'd just wobble around a bit and not cry, and then we'd get the video quickly, and then we'd let her be, because Liza was just involved, so we were just doing life with her whilst filming. And the third one would be try to find easy wins for the family and the child. So like, tell Eliza she did really good being slower and still, because a lot of dogs, particularly herding breeds, border collies, the breeds that I work with, really, they find movement very stimulating. Children move and children are noisy. So sometimes they're going against each other. And so what you kind of need to do is catch them both doing the right stuff and find easy wins. Okay, he was quiet in his crate. He was quiet behind the stair gate. He was quiet in the dog room. He was quiet whilst I was doing this. Okay, he managed to settle on his bed for 2 minutes whilst we were having dinner. Like, find the easy wins and don't make it difficult. Sometimes as well, like when the children are really busy, okay, pop the dog in the garden for a bit, or to pop the dog somewhere else. Don't make your life hard. The biggest thing I think with dogs and children though is manage it, and don't be afraid to manage it, and don't be afraid to step in. You're much better being sensible than allowing something to go really wrong.
Okay, so here's my question. When a person is choosing a puppy, right, the first time they're meeting, and let's say they meet the whole litter and they meet the mom and the dad, in an ideal situation, how do they know which puppy is for them? What tips would you give for choosing the right puppy for a person's lifestyle, for maybe what dog sports they want to do?
I think it's a brilliant question. And I would say, unless you're really, really informed and you really know what you're looking for, like I know what I'm looking for. I want structure. I want quick feet. I want nice body, nice build. I want the correct top line. And you guys are listening, at pet owners are going, what the hell is she on about? I'm looking for a sports dog. I'm looking for like Red Rum of the horse world. I'm looking for Milton of the show jumping world. I'm looking for some of the greats. Like, that's what I'm looking for. I know what I want from a litter. I would say most people probably should allow the breeder to make some decisions for them, as long as the breeder they have chosen that they feel is sensible at picking puppies. They've put together the right parents. Number one, if you don't like the parents, don't go for the puppies. Do not go for the puppies if you don't like the parents. For me, when I have puppies, I want to know that I want the puppies myself. They're that good. I want to keep them all. Like I want to keep them all, not in a sentimental way, in a, oh my goodness, these are both cracking. They're both physically fit. They're both physically healthy. They've had health tests that are appropriate for their breed. They are the right structure. They have the right temperament and demeanor as a dog in training. They're trainable, they're biddable, they are kind-natured, but they're also fast twitch, because I want dog sports. So I want a dog who's able to turn it on when I need it. And I also want a dog who has the ability to switch it off too. Skittles is still working on that. And so for me, I personally would want to pick my own dog, because I'm looking for so many different things, but I'm looking for way more than what my mum is. If my mum's going to look at puppies, I would say to my mum, talk to the breeder. If you're happy with both parents, if you're happy with the health, if you're happy with all of the heritage, if you've seen the pups and you've seen the mum, sometimes you're going to see the dad, but sometimes you're not, because most people use a stud dog who doesn't live with them. And if you want to go visit, great. But if you don't want to visit, then speaking to them or getting some videos or doing it in whatever way is doable or viable for you. But for me, then, to a degree, you need to trust the person that's had them for the last 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever is the right age for the breed and the place where you live. That person spent 8 weeks with them. That person already knows the majority of the temperament, where you've been in there 10 minutes and you might like a certain color or a certain marking, and it might be cute that the dog's got a little black sort of fleck on its bottom. But when that dog's like ragging your, I don't know, scarf, or hanging off your dressing gown and trying to get hold of you at 2 a.m. in the morning, howling because they're actually not given the lifestyle that they probably needed, I think it's really important we acknowledge that and go, you know what, are you the right dog? And I remember about 7 years ago, I had this lovely lady here and she said, I really want that puppy. And I said, I understand you want that puppy, but that puppy's a firecracker. That puppy, she'd come to me wanting a retirement pet. She wanted a retirement pet and she really wanted a retirement dog. And I said, that puppy's a firecracker. Like, it's fizzy as hell. It's a really fizzy dog. It's the sort of dog I'd pick for me. I think you'd be much better off with that puppy, because that puppy over there, he's just going to be much more level, much more sedate. He's just a nicer, kinder, more empathetic dog. That dog's going to be kind to you. And you know what? That dog went on to be the nicest mate, went to coffee houses with her. She had the best time, or she has the best time with him. He's like her right hand. He's literally her heart and soul. And the other dog's gone on to be a top sports dog. And for me, and it's a head case. She's actually a head case. I mean, a good head case for what she does, but she's like 24/7. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. And so I think sometimes you will have differences in a litter, and trust the person who's had that experience with them. That might not feel like the right decision for you. And if it doesn't, then walk away. But do trust their ability to know what they've got. And I would say those matches are really important. A second one I can think of, really, really top agility competitor, again, probably 7 years ago, 8 years ago, a long time ago. The dog's older now. And he said, I really like that dog. And I said, you know what, that dog's very herdy. It's going to be a real herder. It's going to go out wide. It's going to herd. You're going to have challenges with that dog. This one's a much softer, more biddable, more naturally in tune dog. That dog has won every championship. That dog has been to all big events. That dog is a fantastic mate for him. And I watched them and they're so absolutely in tune. The other dog was a bit feral, a bit wild, a bit pushy, and a bit would do things that were off the rails. And that dog sadly died. He died at 5 and he'd eaten something for the 3rd time and had to have it removed. And basically, I think that did show his personality. Like, he was always wanting to do things that were probably off the cards. And he still carried on doing that. And so that dog would have always taken more management. And so I suppose, Jen, what I'm saying is, if you're really experienced, choose your dog. If you're not really experienced, choose the right person to help you choose your dog.
One thing to add to that too, is that, like, I work with people that have rescues. So they show up at the rescue at the either like an SPCA close to me, or even animal control, all of the little places that they can get a rescue. So what I took away from that I can give to those people is talk to the people who are fostering your puppy. Like, ask them all like, what does that puppy do every day? What kind of personality traits have you seen with that puppy? Is the puppy doing things you are surprised about? Is the puppy all the time? So I think that is a really fantastic way of getting to know the dogs before you take them home and then feel regret.
Huge. And just to add again, got something to add. I had a rescue dog when I was 11, and the rescue dog I had was a little lurcher. Her name was Lucy, and I loved Lucy. I adored Lucy, but I really wanted Megan, and Megan went to my neighbor. Megan was a border collie. Megan jumped everything. Megan wanted to do agility. Megan loved agility, and I really needed Megan, and she really needed Lucy. So I would walk Megan because she couldn't walk. She was in her 60s and she had hip problems, and she wasn't old, but she had real, like, physical issues going on. And so she struggled to walk her after about 9 months of having her. Whereas my dog didn't want to walk, didn't want to train. Lurchers typically are not the most, like, let's do agility breed. Like, depends on the cross, does depend on the cross, but she was not. She was 7 and she'd had a lot of bad treatment, and she really just wanted to lie on a sofa and be loved. Well, that was a much better match for lovely Shirley, and Megan would have been a much better match for me. And yet the rescue centre really insisted, because we were out at work, that we shouldn't have the border collie and that we should have the lurcher. And they insisted because she was at home, she should have the border collie and not the lurcher. But actually, we were only out of work, like, it was only, the crossover was only 3 hours. And so I think it's also that level of, what is the person looking for? What is the dog that we have to offer? What size of dog are they looking for? What, like, volume of dog are they looking for? Like, how do they do life? And Megan did life big, and Lucy didn't really want to do life. And so I think that you've got the ability to listen, but also the ability to look at what you've got with real open eyes.
So I'm just going to ask you for a couple tips on sort of like what's the right environment for a puppy to be living in? Food, where should they sleep? How much sleep do they need? What kind of bed should they have? All that kind of stuff, just to get their life started on the right paw. Just like what are some of the things that you should be aware of? Because I think, like, again, as humans, I don't think we intuitively, like, for me, it's just like, let's play with them 24 hours a day. Whenever I'm awake, they're awake, or whatever. Yeah, I want them always to be in bed with me too. Like, they should sleep in bed. You and I totally disagree on that. But like, what are some of the things that you think, like, lead to a productive life for this dog going forward? Like, when you're just getting them started.
Largely because I have 10 dogs, I really don't want them in bed. I'm like, God, they'd have no bed left. My bedding would not be white anymore. I've become accustomed to white bedding, and I quite like it. So loads of things, Bill, like so many. Again, this could be another whole podcast, and actually it'd be a great podcast to do. So we should write it down, Jen. The biggest thing for me is, I do think, again, doing life. So don't get too panicky if it isn't always the same. So people talk about, like, routines. For me, actually having less routine is quite useful. So with a kitten, for example, today I've just taken her to the office. Why? Because she's bored at mum's house because mum's not there, and the office has got more involved, like, action going on. So she's over at the office. But yesterday she didn't go to the office all day. She went to the office when the vet came, so that the vet could have the house quietly, and she was over in the office. So, like, it really, like, we mix it up. And I think that's quite important. I think a crate for me is essential. And I think crates just make my life very easy to be safe. So the puppy isn't chewing wires or chastising a child or being chastised by a child or chastising another dog or being chastised by another dog. Like I can give them time where I go, okay, you're safe. I just need to do this and I'm good. I think
Do they see crates as a safe space?
that's a really great point. So for my dogs, they love their crate. So I shape the crate early on. So I get them to want the crate. And the way I do that with a puppy is they would get like some form of enrichment activity in there, maybe a filled Kong, maybe a filled bone, maybe a calm mat or a lick mat of some type, maybe like a food bowl that's kind of like enrichment type. So they would get something to do in there typically. I quite like soothing the crate a little bit by putting a cover over it or having a radio next to it. And I love the saying, sort of stay close but visit often, or be close and visit often. So you're never like, I might be in the same room or I might be in the same sort of on the same floor, but I'm not always directly there with the puppy. But in the crate, I know they're safe. Whereas when you've got them loose, I mean, puppies, they can be like lemmings. They can sort of drop off things or jump in things or put their head in things. Or I remember catching Blink in the toilet. She was actually in the toilet. She jumped in to try and have a swim. And I was like, this is ridiculous. How? And Blink was, when I got Blink, Blink was already 11 months old. So she wasn't a puppy really. But just know that they don't always know what's best. So when they say like dogs know what's best or they'll know what's best, they do not know what's best. They will eat too much. They will not sleep enough. They will create chaos. They will bite through wires. They don't know what's best. Like a dog doesn't have the foresight of, I shouldn't chew this. This is electrical. So yeah, crates are safe. And crates, I think my dogs see them as a good place, but I build it quite early on, Bill. And sometimes when they're really tired, I pop them in the crate and then I sit near the crate and read a book, or I sit near the crate and take a phone call so they can hear my voice talking. And so I'm always around. I think the ideal scenario is you are around. Like I can't imagine having a puppy and going to work for 10 hours a day. Like that just wouldn't work for, I just haven't had to experience that because I suppose being entrepreneurial, I've always been at home and running my own businesses. But if I did have that scenario, I think I'd be trying to take my dog to work with me, or I'd be trying to have someone stay at my home for the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, and then gradually reduce it. Food, I think it really is a very controversial topic. So for me, my dogs are fed raw primarily and home baked goods, but I do use some commercial goods as well. When I'm traveling, oh my goodness, I'm packing all my stuff at the moment. It's more stuff than usual because I'm taking dogs still. And so the room is like full, but the worst bit is it smells like dog food, and it's because I've got like different things packed that I just didn't realize that dog food really has a smell. And normally my dog food is either in a freezer or in a room, but it's not normally in my bedroom.
Yeah,
So
you sent me a picture of your luggage, and I was like, "There's nothing for you in there. It was all dog stuff. There's no people stuff."
I'm like so prepared. Like I rescue canine, rescue sachets, and, all the things that in case when you travel, there's something going to go wrong. So I'm always ready because you never know when you're traveling and you never know what you might need. So there's me in my kitchen sink being loaded right now. For puppies, I do like toys, but I like them to have toys with me, and then they have their own interactive toys that they might work with, something to chew or something to get some level of enrichment with. And then puppy line, I think lines are really handy, that you've just got them trailing a line, that sometimes when they're maybe getting in your dishwasher or doing something they shouldn't do, you can like open the dishwasher, or you can bring the line out and then close the dishwasher. Like you can just play around with the line. So puppy lines really help. You can get them on the absoluteDOGS store if you're listening. What else would I say? Oh, beds. So for my dogs, I think any bed that for my dogs, it doesn't have to be the same bed. I quite like it to smell of me in some way. So if I've got like an old blanket or an old coat or an old jumper or one of my dogs chewed a hole in my really nice Lululemon top the other day, and I found great pleasure in shredding it up and putting it in a bed. Like I was like, you can have that. So after I loved my top, and it was only about 8 weeks old. And dogs do things like that. Pups do chew, young dogs do chew, old dogs do chew. Like they do stuff, and you just have to go, well, I shouldn't have probably left it on the floor. Wasn't my best place to leave a top. So yeah, beds, I don't have the beds in the same place. I have beds in lots of different places. I change the beds. I probably am not saying what the typical owner would expect to hear. I don't have a fixed routine. I don't have a fixed feeding schedule. And those people with like the OCDs are going to be like, oh my God, how can you live like this? But then they just learn rock and roll. Like Liza's the same. She doesn't necessarily know where her dinner comes from, but she knows she's getting dinner. And if she doesn't have it in time, she goes makes her own. Like it's quite fun. Like I think it's a fun way to live. Adventurous.
Okay, Lauren, what do you think that the lessons that puppies teach us are? What kind of like bigger overall embrace life kind of things do puppies teach us?
Laughing. Like that kitten has had me in stitches. And I'm going to say puppies and kittens because I didn't really know how fun kittens could be. I really didn't. Like I haven't had a kitten since I was probably 11. And so Eliza's age. I have loved having a kitten. And so for me, it's no different to a puppy. She really is no different. Like she's just, and she needs people just as much. She needs people around her. She doesn't like being on her own all day. Like my mum being away is a real pain for her. And so laughing and just being able to not take yourself seriously. I think that's really good. Like she just does the funniest things. Like she's hiding and she's looking at you and she bounces into you and you're like, you're so funny. Or like you're walking in and then she throws a cucumber at you. She's got a cucumber toy and you just laugh. They make you laugh. I think the other thing is patience. I'm so much more patient with my animals than I am with my people sometimes. And I have to remind myself and I have to like sometimes kick myself a bit like patience or impatience. I say like patience grasshopper. Like you just have to have that like I'm not, you guys would both know, oh, there's a lovely rainbow out there. So I'm so easily distracted. And you guys would both know that I am not possibly the most patient person. I like instant. I'm very like of the world, instant gratification and instant happenings and fail fast and let's move on and whatever else. I think the biggest thing with puppies is you can't, like they need time and they can't always get up or they can't always go forward. And actually for me, owning dogs like Tokyo, my just a lovely boy, he made me slow down because if I didn't slow down, he couldn't handle it. So actually he really taught me to be patient because, and he could handle it with real ease if I just took my time. So those, it was just a real lovely lesson to have that, yeah, take your time. And probably with training with puppies, like build the foundations, but what a life lesson that is. Build the foundations. Build the foundations. If you've got the foundations, everything else is going to be good. And that's the same whether you're riding horses or whether you've got a new kitten or whether you've got a business or whether you've got like a new employee or you're a new employer. Like I think you build the foundations and everything's good. I've got someone who's just started work for us and she was here today and she said, oh, and what about the shopping and what about this? And I said, no, I've got that covered for a minute. Just get to grips with what you're doing. And that's so different to how I'd have been a year ago because I'd have been like, yes, do the shopping, yes, do that. And she'd probably gone, oh my God, I can't handle this. Whereas actually you've taken a step back and you've gone, okay, just give her these bits and then we'll add on this later. So I think the foundations, like anchoring those with a pup, pups teach you that foundations are important. So yeah, those.
I mean, for me, I'll just add one to that. I think be curious. I mean, they're just so curious and they're investigating the world for the first time. But I think often they wind up seeing things in a way that you never would have. And like even if it's something they shouldn't have done, right? They turn something into a toy that you're like, wow, in a million years I wouldn't have thought that was a toy. You know, like I mean, you wouldn't it wouldn't have occurred to you. And at the same time, you kind of got to respect them for it. But you're like, you just made fun out of nothing. Like that's kind of cool.
I had exactly that experience the other day, Bill. I was working with a little sheepdog and she's obviously not really played with toys or you put a toy in front of her, she's got no idea what it is. But we were over in, I think we're in Lincoln and we were in a caravan park and we were a dog show. And this little sheepdog went up and grabbed a bottle lid and started flinging it in the air. And it's a bottle lid, so it's small. So for me, I'm like, I don't really want to let dogs play with bottle lids because you're worried about what they're going to do. But you can see that because she hasn't had typical toys that my dogs would have, she makes fun of anything that she's got, a leaf, a twig, a bottle lid, and she's flinging it up in the air and she's rolling on it and then she's growling at it, and she's pouncing on it, and then she's backing it off, and then she's like making funny faces at it. And you gotta love it. You've got to love that because it's a bottle lid. So yeah, I love Be Curious. I think Curious is also, if I have another dog, well, when I have another dog, Curious is a great name. I love the name Curie, or Curious. Like I think that's one of my favorite like slogans: stay curious or be curious, or yeah, curious is a
All
good
right,
thing.
well, that gets us into names. So
Oh,
so two questions for you. How do you pick a name how do you pick a good name for your dog? And two, what are some of the funniest names you've ever heard?
oh God. I've trained a poodle named Dave. I have trained a spaniel, Jarvis Cocker, a Cocker Spaniel. So Jarvis Cocker, the Cocker Spaniel. I have trained Colin, who was a Cavapoo. I have trained a Harrison that was a Havapoo. I've trained like every like just funny male names. I haven't trained an Alan yet. That would make me giggle. So I trained some funny names. For my own dogs, people love my dogs' names. People always love my dogs' names. They always say, "How did you name that dog?" And sometimes names just stick. Like Skittles, I didn't really even like the name Skittles. She just was so nuts. I was like, "You're like Skittles. You're like colorful and bright and the rainbow. Like she's wild." And then Wild was Wild because she was a wild puppy. And then Adventure was Adventure because she was always like a bit of an adventure. And then Tokyo was named when we had the Olympic Games. So he was like that sort of time. And Matt just said when he was 2 weeks old, that dog's called Tokyo. And I was like, he's not called Tokyo. And he was like, he is, and he's staying. And I'm like, he's not staying. I don't have boys, I have girls because I've always had
Was
girls.
was Brave before Brave was Brave?
Yeah, Brave was Brave. And I think that was incredible that she was already named Brave. And like, what an apt name for it gives me goosebumps, like for an incredible dog. Like, what an apt name for a really incredible dog, like, really incredible dog. So that's crazy, isn't it? That was her name. Like the universe knew what she would go through, and the universe knew what was, I don't know, just an incredible name for an incredible dog. And she is so brave. I've got a video of her running this morning, and she was running, and she's really running, and I'm like, oh, please don't run like that. And she's like, I'm having so much fun. So yeah, like, and I think Blink, like, God, she doesn't miss a beat. She doesn't blink. She's so fast, and so even at 11. But when I had Blink, her name was Tinker. And I was like, I just can't have a Tinker. Like, Tinker's the wrong name. Like, it's just the wrong name. And so I changed her name to Blink, and it so suited her. And then we have what's called a kennel name or a kennel club name. And hers was Sexier Irma. And I was like, I can't have a dog called Irma. Like, Irma's the weirdest neat name. So I changed it to Blinking Brilliant. And like, what a cool name! Like, such a good name for her. So I was just really happy that I managed to get that too. So yeah, really, really cool.
My sister had a dog named Sir Russell of Leaves,
Really? What
which I
breed
thought
is
was
it?
fun. He was a Cocker Spaniel, and it was
Mm,
just really funny, just really funny. And I mean, it's just, I don't know, playing with leaves and dogs,
I think
it's
it's
all good.
great. I like that he's got Sir in it too.
Well, sure. I mean,
Of course,
Yes.
naturally.
yeah.
We have time for one more question.
Go on, time for one more question. One more question each if you've got one. I'll take one more Jen and one more Bill. I've loved it. It's been so much fun. And God, could we talk puppies all day?
Yes, yes, and play with puppies all day. Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
So I found I have a couple clients right now that they adopted siblings and they didn't realize, what a challenge that would be. And so obviously we advise not to adopt siblings just because it's really tough because of the attachment. But are there things to be done for siblings that will benefit them and help them learn and grow confidently and sometimes and often away from each other?
It's a really funny one because I'm probably quite controversial on this. Like, I've had multi siblings and I've really enjoyed it, but I am experienced and I do know what I'm doing. But I've really enjoyed having siblings, and I've not really had big problems having siblings. But I would say the biggest thing, and this is where I can definitely advise, they have different schedules. So they have different schedules. So if you ever have siblings, they have different schedules. So what I love about having siblings is because I'm quite an energetic person, it actually gives me a lot to do. So I'm like, yeah, doing one, now doing the other, now doing the other, now doing the other. So now we're training them, now they're sleeping, now they're on a Kong, now I'm doing this. So it gives me a real structure to what I'm doing. But I would say separate schedules, Jen. So the more the better on separate schedules. So if we think enrichment activities, if we think about garden activities, if we think about walking, if we think about any type of exercise, if we think about game playing, probably don't try to train them together, try to train them separately, and having good enrichment and good ditch the bowl to allow it all to effectively be reinforcing to the dog too. So it needs to be reinforcing to them, because if not, it's not reinforcing when there's no purpose to it. You do need to make purpose in it, because if not, if you just feed them in a bowl and then you go and take one dog away from the other dog is going to create merry hell because they're on their own. So why leave them on their own? Like, it doesn't make sense. There's no value in it for them. You need to put value there.
Great tips. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got one quick question, and then I'm going to have a request for you
Cool.
that maybe will make you laugh.
No singing. No
I was
singing.
about to say, is it a song request?
It's even worse. So the quick question for you is, how do you get I think, you know, leads are not necessarily natural to dogs, right? You gotta get them used to them. How do you get a dog like a puppy used to being on a lead? Like what's how do you get them accustomed with? 'Cause there's a collar, there's a lead, and because obviously they don't need it all the time, but they're gonna need it like in public, and some, you know, a lot of places require that your dog's on a lead. So how do you get them into that?
That's a great question. And again, I've been two experiences in the last few weeks putting animals on leads. The kitten's got a lead and a harness. So the kitten's got a lead and a harness. And you should see her be like, get it off me. And Liza obviously go straight out for a walk, which was not the right way to do it. But there you go. Liza's little and we'll let her learn. Second experience I've had is a sheepdog that's not had a lead on her. So I've been working with a little sheepdog. She's not had a lead on her. And so she's like, what is this on me? And collar, she just scratches it all day long. She just scratches and scratches and scratches. So a couple of things. One is put them on it appropriately. So if you're not going to do anything with them and you're not going to be supervising them, take it off. So actually put it on them appropriately. Two is obviously careful supervision with collars, because dogs and cats can get trapped in collars. So I've seen, sadly, pretty horrific accidents and from clients. So and dogs have died, which is not nice. I've seen that from two different reasons. One, a dog playing with another dog and getting caught in it in the collar, and secondly, a dog getting caught in a crate. And I've experienced both of them firsthand from clients, which, like in a training experience with them, not in that moment. So I mean, it's them telling me, so I suppose I'm not there, but it was pretty horrific, and they're people I knew, so they were not nice. So being careful on collars. And then the other one to think about is then make it a good experience. So the lead would be on and the puppy would be training, but you might not pick the lead up. So actually they trail the lead. So I'm in the house, Bill, I'm playing games from Games Club, our online Netflix of dog training. So I'm playing my games from Games Club. If you haven't heard about it, get on and search it out. It's such a cool space to be. Playing the games, puppies on the lead, puppies on the long line, puppies on the puppy line. The puppy line's really thin. It's on the website, really thin puppy lines, perfect puppy line. And you're spinning the dog around and the dog's getting food and the dog's playing orientation game or middle or some fun game, but they're not even aware they've got a collar and lead on because they're having so much fun. And I think that's where you're just having a lovely time and they're not really thinking about it. That's how
That's
I do
great.
that.
That's great. That's really interesting, actually, for me. I mean, I'm not a pro dog trainer or anything, so like for me, that's kind of interesting to hear.
And I just pick it up. I just gradually pick it up as I go, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. And then I pick it up for longer, pick it up for longer, pick it up for longer. And suddenly we're at school and there they go.
Right. And then here's the request. This is going to be odd for you. Either as an intro or an outro to this podcast, you need to call up your friend Dave, because I love the way he says puppy. I mean, he's from Birmingham, and he just
Does he say
puppy,
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 puppy?
Yeah, I mean, he's
puppy, puppy,
puppy. Puppy. Like there's no better person who says that word than Dave. So I mean,
I'm gonna get him to say it 10 times.
Yeah, I don't even know if we
times.
could have handled him being on this entire podcast, because him saying it every single time would be almost too much. But I feel like he needs to do an intro or an outro to this thing, just because like it's so wonderful when you hear him say it.
Right, you're on. I'm going to try. My friend Dave, I'm going to try. I'm going to do my best. You guys have been amazing. Thank you so much. I think that it's been a lot of fun. Puppies are a lot of fun. And actually, the joys, the trials, the tribulations, and sometimes there is experiences that we need to grow and learn through owning them. So you know what? I think that our owners, our listeners, and all of the people that follow Sexier and Squirrel are going to love this episode. Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you so much, Jen. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.